Welcome back to Movie Moshow. Today we are going to review the science fiction superhero film, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. If you like our content, don't forget to like and subscribe. We post multiple times daily. Spoilers ahead. In a different 1899, a number of high-profile crimes supposedly committed by citizens of other nations take place in various countries throughout Europe, bringing the continent to the verge of war. To recruit the renowned, but now elderly, hunter and adventurer Alan Quatermain, Sean Connery, an emissary of the British government named Sanderson Reed, Tom Goodman Hill, travels to a gentleman's club in Kenya. Reed, on the other hand, believes that Quatermain's feeling of patriotism has waned over time and declines to volunteer his services. A troop of armored men with machine weapons emerge out of nowhere and start murdering the club members. Quatermain successfully repels the assailants on his own, pursuing the last one to finish him off, and avoiding being killed by a bomb the men detonated inside the bar. Quatermain reluctantly consents to go back to England after concluding that an all-out European war will soon spread to Africa. Later, when Quatermain reaches London, he encounters the enigmatic M. Richard Roxburgh, who reveals his scheme to form a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen to counter the Phantom, the real perpetrator of the current crisis, and maintain world peace by preventing him from destroying Venice. Quatermain quickly meets Captain Nemo, Nasiruddin Shah, Rodney Skinner, an unseen gentleman thief, and Mrs. Mina Harker, Peter Wilson, whom M describes as a renowned chemical chemist. Skinner helped the government in exchange for an antidote after stealing an invisibility formula from its inventor. The group is sent by M to meet the enigmatic Dorian Gray, Stuart Townsend, who they are hoping to persuade to become another member of the League, but he declines to do so. Gray and Quatermain are speaking when Quatermain notices that a painting is definitely gone from a wall. The Phantom and his men appear out of nowhere, and the entire room explodes into a gunfire. However, one of the henchmen turns out to be a group friend. Dorian Gray's physical invulnerability is made clear throughout the battle, and the Phantom manages to flee. Mina is being held with a knife to her throat after the battle. When Mina's eyes suddenly turn red, she rips her attacker's throat out and begins to gorge herself on his neck. Then Mina gives a background explanation of her meeting with Dracula and the development of her supernatural abilities. Secret Service agent Tom Sawyer, Shane West, who is allowed to join them by a somewhat pleased Quatermain, is revealed to be the pleasant henchman. Dorian, who had initially been hesitant, decides to join the League. The League then travels to France in Nemo's submarine, the Nautilus, to find the League's final applicant. Jason Fleming's Mr. Hyde is apprehended by Quatermain and Sawyer in Paris, but he soon transforms back into the timid and tormented Dr. Jekyll. When he finds out that the Queen will permit his return to London if he assists, he is eager to do so. After the team has been assembled, the Nautilus departs for Venice. When flash powder is discovered in the Nautilus wheel room and a bottle of Jekyll's serum is discovered to be stolen, the group begins to suspect there may be a traitor among them. Naturally, everyone believes that Skinner, the invisible thief, is to blame, but since Skinner is nowhere to be located, there is nothing that can be done about it. The Nautilus navigates through the congested canals of Venice before coming to a stop beneath a bridge. Bombs have been planted under the city, and when they go off, they start to explode and start collapsing buildings one by one. The crew determines that the only way to stop the series of explosions is to remove one of the buildings from the sequence. The building in question can be hit by a missile that Nemo can launch from the Nautilus, but only if a beacon can be installed. The League piles in with Sawyer at the wheel and begins a race through the streets of Venice since Nemo can follow his automobile, allowing it to function as the beacon. Along the journey, Gray and Mina emerge on their own to engage several gangs of henchmen. Quatermain leaves the car as well and pursues the Phantom on foot. The two engage in combat in a cemetery, when the Phantom drops his mask. The Phantom is discovered to be none other than the enigmatic M before he makes his getaway. Nemo's missile is signaled to launch by Sawyer crashing the car into the target building and firing a flare at the same moment. Venice is saved, the explosions halt, and the building is destroyed. Ishmael, the first mate, is greeted by Gray at the Nautilus and accuses him of being the cause of their problems, but Gray shoots him, proving him incorrect. When the League comes together at the Nautilus, Quatermain confesses that M is responsible for the entire situation. Ishmael arrives as he is dying and accuses Gray of being a traitor. Gray emerges from the Nautilus in a small submersible craft, waving to the gathering team and grinning as he does so. While the Nautilus is on the hunt for Nemo, a record is discovered and played on a gramophone. As M describes the magnitude of his intentions, his voice fills the space. Everything that had happened up to this point had been a deception for M to collect physical components from each of the League members in order to create an army of superpowered troops, including Mina's blood, Jekyll's formula, Captain Nemo's research, and a sample of Skinner's invisible skin. He also reveals that Quatermain was only necessary for the Mr. Hyde capture. By launching a global conflict and providing the participating nations with weaponry and weapons based on the League's might, M hopes to make money. He stole Gray's charmed portrait, the home's missing picture, and used it as leverage to get Gray to assist him. 3 bombs are detonated within the ship by the record's second undetected signal as it is being played, but Mr. Hyde is able to prevent the ship from sinking, earning Dr. Jekyll's praise. After receiving a signal from Skinner, the League trek through the frozen wastes to a cave with a view of an industrial fortification, while the Nautilus continues to the Asian Arctic. When Skinner sees them, he tells them that M is holding several scientists and their families as slaves and hostages in his munitions factory. He had fled when he heard of their suspicions about him. The scientists are developing an army of Hyde-like brutes, invisible spies, and vampire assassins while the workers are building Nautiloid, copies of the Nautilus. The League infiltrates the factory after splitting away. Sawyer and Quatermain go after M, while Nemo and Hyde try to rescue the scientists and their families. While Skinner sets off to install some bombs, Mina searches for Gray. Nemo and Hyde encounter Dante, the second in command, who consumes a substantial quantity of Jekyll's concoction and changes into a gigantic, hulking monster to fight Hyde. Since they are both immortal, Mina's confrontation with Gray ends in a dead end until she confronts him with his magical painting, which causes him to deteriorate in front of her. Quatermain encounters M in his hideout and discloses his deduction that M is none other than the fictitiously deceased Professor James Moriarty, Sherlock Holmes' adversary. The bombs detonate as Hyde and Dante are engaged in combat, and Dante is killed by falling objects. While holding Moriarty at knife point, Quatermain notices in a mirror that Sawyer is being held at knife point behind him by an invisible guy, Sanderson Reed. When he turns to fire the invisible bad guy, Moriarty stabs him in the back and makes another getaway by running across the ice. Sawyer is compelled to apply the shooting techniques that Quatermain had taught him after Quatermain is fatally wounded. Before Moriarty can board his stolen submersible, he shoots him. Moriarty drowns instantly when his case, which contained the information that Gray had taken from the League, falls into the water. Soon later, Quatermain also passes away. To bury Quatermain, the group gathers in Africa. A tribal witch doctor gathers some dirt from Quatermain's grave and starts a ritual chant while the gang sadistically disperses. We are brought back to Quatermain's opening narration of a witch doctor's prediction that Africa would not let Quatermain die. The rifle that Sawyer had set on the grave begins to tremble as a result of the strong ground trembling. Just as the picture goes black, lightning strikes Quatermain's grave. Thank you for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe.